Hello everybody and welcome back. In the year 2016, Holly Conrad and I dressed up as characters from Alita Battle Angel, the very popular manga. Well, in celebration of the live action movie, I made her arm patterns available in my shop. Go ahead, download them, because in today's episode, I'm going to show you how we're going to go about putting them together. So if you're ready, let's get started. There's, to save time, I went ahead and cut all the parts out. You can see right here. This is all done with 6mm foam. This is EVA foam, TNT Cosplay Supply foam, that is. Now everything's cut out. The next step I want to move on to is a little trick I like to do. This is on the joints, little circles. We need 8 of these. And so I went ahead and just stacked the foam twice and traced it. So when I cut out 4, I'll actually have 8. Now I spray glued it very lightly because you have to remember you have to be able to pull these apart again. So I'm going to take these off camera and cut these out on the bandsaw. Alright, I have them all cut out. Now I'm going to clean up the little bit of the edges. They're pretty good, but I'm just going to do a little bit of cleaning with my stone bit. We're going to switch the bits to a finer sanding drum because this foam, which is what makes TNT so great, the EVA foam is so dense that the stone bit doesn't work as well on it. So I'm going to do a little bit of a finer grit sanding drum. Yes, that's much better. Now my little circles, the joints have been called. You take the, you pull on it. See? Pop. Now you have 2 good clean circles. So set those aside. Those are done. Now, before we start assembling, we want to create on the seams. When I built this costume, I wanted to make sure that all the seam lines, when I was making the Alita Battle Angel was a mechanical arm, she had seams everywhere. So I incorporated those seams to be actual seam lines of the patterns. So to make those seams visible, but still look cool and not sloppy, we're going to take the rotary tool and we're just going to bevel the top edges so it gives it a nice clean edge. So when you glue it together, you'll see the edge, but they'll look intentional and clean and mechanical. So we're going to do that. When you're grinding foam with your rotary tool, make sure you're always going the same direction that the wheel is spinning. If you look on my rotary tool, it has a little arrow right there. And that arrow represents the wheel it's spinning. So when I'm grinding foam, I always go in the direction that's spinning. All right, now the bevel. The trick is you want to make sure you get the bevel on the top beveled down and leave the equal amount of distance for gluing. So I bevel about the same thickness as the edge. So kind of make sure we bevel it right down the middle. Okay, now you see this is the bicep and this is the back of the arm. This is the back of the bicep. If you notice on the actual original blueprints, there's little dotted lines. And you want to take that line, lay it on the top of your foam, make marks, and transfer that line on there. These are going to be glue contact points. And this will come into later. So the back, you have the front of the bicep and the back of the bicep. Those little lines, you want to definitely get those in. Those are glue contact points that will come in later. Now that we got these guys all beveled, we're going to start working on the wood burner. This is the back of the bicep, so this has some wood burning detail that's going to go in that on the back of the arm, and also the 2 forearm pieces. All this detail has to be wood burned in first. I went ahead and cut notches to get the line started, but I'm going to go ahead and take a Sharpie and complete these lines just to make it easier for me to follow with a wood burner. When using the wood burner, pick a speed and keep the same consistency as you bring the wood burner across, just like that. I have a fan off camera blowing in my face. And again, a metal ruler, people. When using a wood burner, getting nice clean lines with a good metal straight edge. Now we have the parts that all but need to be wood burn detail in. We're going to move on to heat forming. So the heat forming we're going to start with first is the actual circle, which is the cyber arm shoulder. And how we're going to do that, we're going to take a heat gun. And again, I have a foam anvil. It's a clear acrylic dome I can bend onto. If you don't have one, you can definitely just get a ball or something round to heat and stretch the foam over. All right, now we got the curve for the top of the shoulder. We're going to move on to the the sides of the shoulders, and we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. We're going to heat these guys up and curl these as well. Just like that. All right, now the shoulder has been heat formed. Before we heat form the rest of the parts, while this is flat, again, this is the sidearm detail. There's holes, and again, you know me, I love my brass tube, so we're going to cut these all out first. The shoulder parts have already been heat curled, so our next step is we're going to go ahead and heat curl the rest of the stuff. All right, all the parts are heat curled and ready to be assembled. So the first thing we're going to start with is let's do the shoulder first. We're going to glue these two pieces together first. With the trouble to make all these nice little bevels, and so I don't want to get glue all over them. I'm just going to do just the lower edge, just the contact edge. Now, this is the dome we made earlier. That's going to fit up right in here just like that. Now, to not leave a mark, I push it on the seam, right on the seam, so we can hide that pinhole. And right on the seam, and make a mark here. I'm just gonna. So while it's still wet, taking my part, line it up, put my piece back in. So while the contact adhesive is wet, put it back in place, pin it. And we're going to set this aside and let this dry. Now we're going to move on to the bicep. And you see I've labeled, again, like I did on the patterns. Anything that was on the patterns you translate onto the foam. So I have my A and my D edge and my C's. So let's start with the A edge. There's our bicep. Moving on. Now we're moving on to the forearm. Let's start with the back of the forearm. All right, excellent. Now that we have this. This is where the elbow. Actually, it's just very funny. I wrote a T on there for top, but it turns out it's actually the bottom. But as long as I know which end's which. But this is the elbow. And again, I want to show you guys that this has been heat curled. Start with the center. Make sure it touches. Contacts. Makes good contact. Yay. I love it when things work. Now, when gluing the forearms together, we have the registration marks. So we're going to start from back here all the way up to the second one. We're going to stop. I'm not going to put any contact adhesive here. I'm only going to do it from here up. And the reason being is once we glue this together, we'll heat shape it and curl it. But you need to have this open so you're able to push your hand through it. All right, now that the glue is applied, I realized just for extra strength, it's a little trick that I used to do, is I have a piece of really thin webbing. I put it right back here behind the stopping point. Of course, fits underneath here. Got it? And then I take that strap underneath here and let it all the way underneath on the other side. Now you know for a fact you have a piece of webbing back in here. So when you go to push your hand through, over time it will not rip because it's reinforced with fabric behind it. All right, now the parts are all glued together. Our next step is we're going to, I want this foam to relax back in its natural state. So what we're going to do is we're going to reheat the foam. Because if you look at it, it's kind of like this bows out way too far. This does too. So once you heat this up, it's going to relax the foam and put it back into its original shape. Now the key thing with the form is once you do that, this is going to come apart. So you want to definitely hold this together while this cools. Now we're going to do the shoulder. Now when I heat this up, I'm going to definitely want to shape. You can see this right now. It's kind of forcing itself into more like a circle. But when we heat this up, we're going to definitely shape this to make it look more oval. Ooh, there it is. And then I hold it like this. All right, got it. All right, now this is cooled. We're going to proceed to glue this onto the bicep. Now, you can see these marks here and the patterns I transferred over to the foam, these little lines right here. These are where you're going to glue this shoulder on. And with this seam line right here, you want to make sure it falls center of these guys. Where the holes are, you want to make sure this line falls center of this. This part of the bicep, this line, you want it to come up and be flush with that. So bend this piece down just a little bit more, like that. Now that we have that pinned in place, and make a line. And we're going to make a notch right here. That, we know that's the center. Make a mark on that. Right there. And there it is. Pow! Look at that. And take some kind of adhesive, like so. And you guys can kind of see it better when you're bringing it up away from the bright lights. But there. Okay, now we just drop these guys on. We got that, and now we have the forearm. It goes in like this. Now the more I look at this, this probably get heat up a little bit more. The arm, this is perfect. I think the width on this is still, so let me heat this up just a little bit more. Lines up perfectly. There it is, completed the Alita Battle Angel again. If you guys don't know, this is the right side. So to take the pattern for the bicep, you just flip them. For the left, it's symmetrical. So all you have to do is make 2 of these. And because there's not really a right or left, I made this smack dash symmetrical. So you can just make 2 of these with a pattern without flipping. Just flipping the right and left for the details. That's done. Again, I know people have been asking me, originally on the Holly Conrad, we just had the costume just float on her arm. If you guys watch my video of making of Alita Battle Angel, I end up gluing elastic. I put a little piece of styrene plastic. You guys can either use Warble or plastic. They keep these parts stiff. And they had a tendency to bend, so I just kind of glued plastic behind them to keep them rigid, and then glued elastic onto this so the arm would just move. But if she had to bend her arm, I had elastic so it would allow her to stretch and it would come back in place. But if you guys want to get really adventurous and make plastic hinges and put in Chicago screws, that would be awesome as well. But there it is, a pattern that you guys can download and make yourself. There it is, the female cyber arm. Now this pattern is available. I'm looking for more people cosplaying that character. I am so pumped about this movie. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm pretty darn excited. This video is from my live stream I do on Twitch every Monday and Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you guys are new watching my YouTube channel, don't forget to subscribe. Shop on my Amazon links. And again, everything I use in this video, I have linked below the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you back next time right here on Evil Ted Live.